There is some very interesting developments happening in our local real estate market and broadly in the overall real estate market here in Canada. And I want to bring you the most real time information here in March 2025. I just wrapped up giving this entire presentation internally to our sales team. And I want to give you the same information so you can make smart real estate decisions here in Brantford or just keep track of the value of your biggest asset, your home. So let's get right into the details. My name is Jeff Thibodeau. I'm an experienced real estate broker here in Brantford, Ontario. This is my hometown. I've been selling houses for people for over 16 years, and I'd study the data day in and day out to educate myself, but also to make smart decisions for my clients. So if you need any help planning your move or trying to maximize the sale price of your home, you know who to call. All you got to do is reach out to me directly and we can start the conversation. No pressure, no obligation. Let's get right into the data. In February, the median sale price came in at $600,000, which was down just slightly from last month and a little bit from last year. But the real story here is that the price has been basically flat for like 16 months. Look at the far right side of this chart, and you can see a very unexciting median sale price line. Of course, the rest of the chart was very exciting. So you got to pick your poison, which one you like better or worse. If we go back to 2020, the market was already in a very strong appreciation phase. The pandemic actually added a ton of fuel to that fire, having prices race out of control for 2 consecutive years. Then we see the line change direction in February, March of 2022, when interest rates were hiked very aggressively to intentionally stop inflation. And we can see the price coming way back down over that year, very painful year for a lot of people. And then as we see the right side of this chart, the market finding its balance. So we've sit for about 16 months on this $600,000 line. And the story of this year is, when is this line going to start going back up? Right? When does the median sale price start to rise again here at Brantford? Because appreciation of real estate is kind of built in. It's a natural part of the market. If houses didn't go up in value over time, most people would choose not to invest in one of them, right? And landlords wouldn't want them as assets either. So, kind of just like owning any asset class, we do expect it to rise in value. And for the last little while, that hasn't been happening. So, what's going to happen next? Well, to figure that out, we do really have to look into the balance between supply and demand and the external factors that are affecting our marketplace. So, in February, the demand for homes, the number of people who actually bought homes, was 86. It's not a huge number. It's up 30% from last month, which is normal, but it's down 10% from last year. And in fact, this January, February combined is the slowest start to a year that I can see in the most recent decade. So that's a little bit concerning, but it makes sense. There's a lot of uncertainty in our market. There's a lot of news headlines about governments on both sides of the border here not working well with each other. And we really got to see how this all plays out. It's important to look at where the demand is actually happening. And this chart breaks down the demand by price point. And you can see the big active segment of the market is that $400,000 to $800,000 price point. Below $400,000, there really just isn't a lot of affordable homes for sale. It is a lot of entry level condos for people. And above $800,000, there actually just isn't that much demand, but there is a ton of choice available. So we've got this interesting kind of market that's split up with a lack of kind of real entry level product for the first time home buyer, a very active middle chunk, and a very slow high end. So it's interesting to follow this and figure out what it means exactly for your situation, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side of one of these charts. In February, we had 167 new homes come on the market. That was actually down from January just a little bit, I think just by one house. Um, that's really interesting because we usually expect demand to be, or the new supply to be the lowest in December and it start rising all the way through the spring. So to see it pull back a little bit in February might just be a statistical anomaly, but it could be an indicator that this uncertainty in the market is actually causing a lot of sellers to pause their plans as well too. So we're not exactly seeing that rush of new listings on the market just quite yet. Now, normally the next 60 days in front of us is the busiest 2-month period of the year for new listings. So we'll have to keep an eye on that and see how the spring rush of new listings really affects the overall inventory levels. This chart here actually shows that same demand chart, but below it or underneath it, I'll say the blue bars that we've laid out is the number of new listings. So those blue bars, go all the way down behind the red bars. And what you can see is anywhere where you can see a really big chunk of blue, that means there's a lot more homes coming on the market than selling at that price point. And bars where you see a lot of red and not much blue tell you there's a lot of demand compared to the amount of new listings coming on the market. And so we see a similar pattern with the demand. And so that's keeping a lot of these market segments in balance with each other and not really having any one particular segment race away. Now, I will note at the bottom of this chart, when we look into the over $1 million price point, you can see there's lots of little blue bars there, which means people are putting their homes up for sale, but we're seeing a real lack of those red bars. So even though more inventory is coming online, the buyers at these price points haven't quite woken up and started making offers on these properties. One interesting statistic I try to track every month is the percentage of new listings versus relisted properties. So you might not realize this, but we can take the home off the market and put it back on, and it shows as a new listing again on sites like realtor.ca. But in the background database, it still is the same listing. So there's these two different fields that are counting the number of days on market. And I always use that to try to indicate how much of the new inventory is actually fresh and new. And in February was actually quite a big number. 81% of those listings that came on the market in February were new to the market. And that's interesting because over the winter months, this number was very high. It was like 30, 40, 50% of the market was not new at all. It was just stale old listings being canceled and relisted, maybe at a different price, maybe with a different agent, but they weren't new. So to see that drop to only 19% of the market being these canceled relist properties and 81% of the market being new should be welcome news for buyers who have been a little bored or they've been saying, oh, there's nothing for sale out there. Well, there was a lot of fresh new listings on the market in February. So get out there and take a look at a few of them. Now, the inventory level rose up to 310. That's a 8.8% increase from last month and 20% higher than last year. So the inventory levels for February are actually very high, even though the market is still moving very quickly. Well, that also represents that there are segments of the market where there's lots of homes for sale, but very few selling. So very important when looking at these numbers to actually dive into your specific situation and understand what the market means to you, not just what it means to all of Brantford or all of Ontario or all of Canada. When we look at the inventory chart, here it is broken down by price point. Again, you can see that there is a wide range of homes available at different price points, all the way from under $300,000 to multi-million dollar properties here in Brantford. But if I can do the same thing we did with the new listings and overlay the sales, we can see where the demand's really happening versus where the number of homes for sale are sitting. And so everywhere you see really big gray bars or where the gray bar, looks like it could fit two or three of the red bars in it, that's telling you that's how much more inventory there is there. And so again, we can see that the lower price points, definitely the 400 to $500,000 price point really got picked off. It's like a ton of demand compared to the amount of inventory available. The next few prices from like 5 to 6, 6 to 7, they look to be about 2 months supply, right? The gray bar is about twice as big as the red bar. And then the gray bars really start to become much larger. So that's showing you that up the price points, the market is a little slower, it's a little more competitive. So for buyers, it's making it a little easier. But if you're trying to sell your home, it takes a very strategic approach when you're in the higher price range. Now, the month supply has risen up to 2.8, which again is normal for this type of year for the month supply to be rising because the number of homes coming up for sale is rising faster than the number of people buying those homes. But I want to zoom out to this chart here and look at the annual trend. You can see back in 2021, the month supply was below one, which is why it was an absolutely insane market all year. Then each successive year, the month supply has kind of peaked, 1 month supply higher at two, then at three, then at four. So now, as we head into this season of 2025, this is the number I'm going to watch the closest. Where the month supply peaks this year is really going to give an indicator on how the rest of the year is going to play out. So if we want the market to be hotter and faster and prices to be rising, we're actually hoping for the month supply to peak lower than last year, so lower than four. Maybe you're a buyer hoping for the prices to come down and for it to be easier to buy a home later this year. You should actually be rooting for the month supply to go up. Now, I think if it hits the level of 4 and hangs on there, anything lower, that'll be a real indicator that the market's turned over and we're in for a period where the market's getting hotter and prices are going up. But if for something hits our market this year and causes the inventory to rise a lot faster than the demand, we could be in a situation where we have another year of successively high month supply peaks, meaning the market is even slower in 2025 than 2024. Again, this is really going to matter depending on what segment of the market, what neighborhood, what style of home you have. You could find yourself being a buyer in one type of market and then going to sell and being in a totally different market. So it's very important to break down your situation and figure out exactly what's going on with you. Let's take a couple more charts. These are actually the favorite ones I create every month, give a lot of insight to what's actually going on between buyers and sellers who are negotiating deals. So the median time to sell a home was only 32 days. That's a lot faster than it was in January, but it's a little bit slower than it was last February. This chart, every red dot represents a home that was sold in February. Across the bottom, we've got the price it sold at, and up the vertical axis is how long in days it took to sell. And the main thing I want to show you here is that actually 48% of all the sales, so let's call it half for rounding error here, half of all the sales in February were homes that had been on the market for a total of 30 days or less, including all their condition period and everything. So that's actually a very fast moving market. And it tells me that the new fresh listings are getting a lot of attention. The remainder represents the entire other half of the market, everything from 31 days up to, I think I see one there for like 327 days or something, almost a year on the market, right? And so this is again, when you're out either shopping or planning on selling your home, you got to decide, are we going to be participating in this fast moving, fresh new listings, things are happening type of market? Or do we want to go look at the listings that maybe someone else has overlooked? They've been on the market a little longer. Maybe they're changing their price. And similarly, as a seller, you want, my advice to you is you want to be in this sub 30-day market. You want to get the home listed properly, marketed properly, and get the job done in 30 days. And you also have to recognize that if you don't, maybe you need a strategy adjustment because the longer your home sits on the market, the less excited buyers are about it. So that being said, the last stat we want to look at here is the strength of the offers happening every single month. And last month, the median or average offer was 98.8% of the asking price. Basically the same. It was 90 even, or sorry, 99 even last month, about the same as it was last year. So again, a lot of data can get lost in averages and medians. So I do the same chart. So let's take a look at that one. Now on this one, we've put the price of the home, but then we've put the percentage that the sale price was considering the asking price. So 100% means a full price exactly offer. And what we're seeing is 31% of the homes, so almost a third of all the homes that sold in February, sold at full price or even higher than full price. Those are those red dots you see at the top of the chart here. Then between 99% and 95%, so anything from like a $1 off to 4%, 5% off, that represents 63% of the market. So almost the other two thirds, right? And then you've got this speck of the market below. 6% of all the sales were over 5% off the asking price. So this chart is very important because it lets us think about our negotiation strategies, our pricing strategies, what our expectations might be as a buyer or seller. And what we see here is that some properties, when marketed and priced properly, they're getting bidding wars. A lot of those bidding wars are very close to asking price. They're not going nuts, but there are some examples here. Home selling, you know, 8, 9, 12% over asking. One as high as looks like about 121. That's the outlier though. But again, if we're going to try to get a bidding war going, we're going to be pricing it properly still because we don't expect people to be paying 100,000 or $150,000 over asking. That's not happening anymore. But conversely, we want to look at this and say, hey, buyers really aren't making crazy low balls, or at least sellers aren't accepting those crazy low balls, right? So if you're out shopping and you're shopping way over your budget, thinking that you're going to negotiate some huge discount, well, the data is not really showing that. It shows that very few homes are selling for big discounts off the asking price. Typically, what happens is actually the seller is going to adjust their strategy. So if you do see a home change its asking price or relaunch it with a new price, then that's one maybe to jump on. I hope all this information is very valuable to you. I find it invaluable in helping my clients make smart real estate decisions. I think whatever you're doing this year, the key is planning. And the number one piece of advice I can give you is if you want some advice from me, the earlier we start talking, the better. If we have a few months to plan your move, whether that's your purchase or getting your home ready to launch it on the market, we're going to do a much better job as a team on getting you an amazing result when we've got time on our side. Of course, there is a plan. If you want to sell your house tomorrow, we've got the resources to make that happen. But it goes much better if we can back up and understand your plan and goals, understand how your home fits into the market scenario, and then really make a plan to get there. That might take a few weeks or even a month of us bringing in professionals, making repairs to your home, doing home staging, getting the right media, planning all the marketing launch. We want to make sure we've got the time to do all that. Please, if you haven't already, hit that like button. It helps me out. It helps these videos reach more people. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you need any help at all, or just want to have a conversation about your goals in this real estate market, all my contact information is right in the video below. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll hit you with a new video next week.